Good morning. How are you? Well, thanks for joining this morning. My name is Kelly. We have about 30 minutes together to get both Monday and May started off in a mindful way. I need to quickly fix my sound. Okay, we'll give this a try again. Okay, we are having some sound difficulties, so just bear with me a moment. Okay, I believe we are now good to go. Thanks for being here. Okay, not quite. There we go. Thanks for being here this morning. Happy to be with you to start both Monday and May off in a mindful way now that I have all of the technical difficulties out of the way. My name is Kelly Villarreal, and we are here for about 30 minutes of some yin and movement. I'm practicing today with one blanket. I have a couple of yoga blocks, and if you don't have yoga blocks, that's no problem. You could make use of a couple of couch pillows or anything else that could just offer some soft support during practice. I mean, I'll invite you to begin by finding a comfortable seat. I'm sitting up on my blanket so that I've got just a little bit of height under my hips. So you can find your way into a similar seated position, maybe cross legged or whatever other way is comfortable for you to be for a few moments. You could start by taking a deep breath in through your nose and a clearing breath out. You can choose to let your eyes drop closed or settle them softly somewhere in your space. And notice the tops of your shoulders and let them soften away from your ears. And just start to settle your attention toward your inner world. So you'd notice the quality of your thoughts or your emotional body. And then you might call your attention down into the lowest space of your belly. Notice if you have any sense of your body holding on to itself or any constriction around that space. And start to draw your breath down to the lowest space of the belly in such a way that you might connect to the sensation of your abdominal wall moving to accommodate your breath in and your breath out. And you could start to bring that intentionality around your breathing a little higher up in the body, noticing the breath moving in your rib cage. You're breathing in a way that the ribs move both front to back, side to side. As we practice together, I'll invite you to let this pattern of your breath, the watching of the breath, be an anchor where you can land your attention as we move in and out of poses and stay for a while. So watch just three or so more rounds of breath come and go here. If your eyes have been closed, you might now blink them back open, or you could lift your eyes from whatever gazing point you've had. We'll come to meet with hands together at heart center. And before we settle into some more still type poses, we'll find just a few moments to move together. So I'll invite you to place your right hand off to the side of your right hip, maybe on the floor or maybe on one of your props, a block or one of the pillows that you grabbed. And then to reach up and overhead with the left arm. Just take a little lean into the left side of your body. You could explore bending and straightening your bottom elbow, and then really let the left side ribs drift over to the left side of your space. You could choose to keep your arm reaching, or you could bend your top elbow and maybe rest your hand behind your head. And you might choose to turn and look toward the ceiling. So it's like rotating action in the chest, and maybe look up and take just a couple more breaths here. As you take your next inhale, you could sweep up through center, reach both arms overhead, and then let left hand come down outside of your left hip and reach up and overhead with your right arm. You could again just really exaggerate the press of your right side ribs toward the right side of your space. And then option to put your bottom hand on the support of a prop or to bend your top elbow and maybe let your hand just rest behind your head. You could wing that elbow gently toward the ceiling and let your chest turn up. You might look up, breathe into the side of your body. You could bring some awareness to the outer lines of both of your thighs and notice if you could soften into those spaces. And take two more breaths here. On your next breath in, reach back up overhead, gather hands down through the center of your heart. And we'll shift from here to a tabletop position. So we'll just shift forward to meet with hands under shoulders and knees under hips. And you could start to explore here. You might move your blanket out of the way. You could start to explore just a little bit of intuitive movement here. So you might allow your hips to wag from side to side, to shift through your shoulders. Maybe you find some rolls through your spine one direction and then the other, or float through some rounds of cat cow. Just moving in such a way in your own space that you can bring a connection between breath and movement. So start to link up your breath to the way your body is moving. One part of your movement invites inhale, and the other part sinks to your exhale. And take just a few more rounds of breath here. You can settle yourself toward a neutral spine position, and then we'll just one and only time today tuck your toes, lift your hips, and make your way back to downward facing dog. As you arrive in down dog, an invitation to kind of mirror whatever movements you are taking in tabletop. Let your hips move one direction and then the other, or pedal your knees out. And then you can begin to walk your feet up to meet your hands toward the top edge of your mat. And we'll find a ragdoll type forward fold here. So you can take your feet slightly wider than hip distance apart. Let your knees find a noticeable, significant bend. And then you could let your hands hang either toward the floor or you could connect your hands to opposite elbows. I also like to really sometimes take my hands to opposite shoulders, like I'm giving myself a little hug in the morning. So you choose one of those options. Let the back of your neck go. So the crown of your head is pointing toward the floor. Back of the neck long and soft. We'll settle in here for a little bit of time. So you might continue to keep some softening behind the knees and really allow your chest to drape toward your thighs. You might notice if your eyes are looking down or slightly in front of you, what it would be like to turn your eyes toward the back of your space. So, really allowing the chin to flex slightly toward your throat. Allow the back of the neck to stay long and soft. You'd notice the muscles in your face and allow them to go slack. And start to really bring your attention to the presence of the force of gravity and what its relationship is with your body. You'd return to the anchor of your breath, and you could notice the way that your breath is moving now in the back of your body. Notice if you can breathe in such a way that you feel the breath moving into the spaces between each rib. And notice the sensations of those spaces settling when you breathe out. Explore just about 5 more breaths here. If your hands have been bound in some way, you could release your fingertips to the floor. Walk your feet back and under your hips. And then come up just about halfway. So bring your spine parallel to the floor. You might, like I am, rest your elbows on the tops of your thighs for a moment. So just pause in this halfway space and take a breath or two here. And then slowly roll yourself the rest of the way back up to standing, moving very slowly and in such a way that your head and your eyes are the very last thing to come up. Then on an inhale, you could reach your arms overhead, gather hands back down to heart center. You bend your knees and find your way back down to a seat. If you set your blanket off to the side like I did, you could grab it again and we'll bring it back underneath the hips for a little bit of height. I'm going to unfold mine just once. I have a slightly less high base, and we'll find our way into a butterfly pose. You could bring the soles of your feet to touch. Let your knees come wide. And what we're looking for here, you could just take a look down at your legs and notice if you've created a square or a diamond type shape. The tendency is often that we bring the heels in really close to the body as we fold. And again, we want to invite a slightly longer position. So move the heels away from the body. You might grab a block or a soft prop if you're using one, maybe both. And then just begin to let your spine drape forward, just round forward. You start to find your way into the space where you notice you're going to have to start applying force, muscular force or effort to deepen into the pose and let that be your stopping place. You settle in here at what we call the first edge in the body. Settle into this first edge space and then just let yourself hang. It's also an option to get rid of any props and just let your head hang in space and really experience the weight of gravity here. You start to bring your attention again just to a noticing of the way your breath is and the rhythm that it's settled into. You notice where you feel in your body the sensations of your breath in and the sensations of your breath out. And then you might start to call your attention into the outer edges of your feet and notice where they're in contact with the floor, what those sensations are like. And then you could begin to notice up the outside line of both of your legs, from the outer feet to the outer knees, and from outer knees to outer hips. And start out at the outermost layer of the skin, and then notice in through the muscle tissue of the body toward the framework of the skeleton, the bones. Anywhere that you sense that there's a quality of tension or holding on in the body, invite the body to let go into the pose. You may find as we're here for a little bit of time that there's an invitation from the body to move deeper into the pose without applying a lot of force. And so, anytime you get that cue that you're ready to move to your next edge, you can find your way there and settle in again, back into a space of stillness. And in this type of yoga, we allow time. We allow time to do the work of the pose. And you could return just to scanning through your body, maybe noticing now the quality of your seat, where it's in contact with a soft prop or with your mat. And then noticing from the hips up the tall center line of the body, the spine, and the way it's rounded here. And where and how you can feel the back of the body moving with your breath. And we'll remain here just a little while longer, and I'll just allow my voice to be quiet so you can let your attention rest on the inside of your space. And take 2 or 3 deeper rounds of breath. Take a big breath in through your nose and maybe an open mouth. Sigh out. And take another breath or two like that. You let your chin round even more toward your throat for a moment, and then start to very slowly invite the body back upright. So you come back shoulders over hips. I invite you to bring your hands to your outer legs to support the legs and drawing back together in center. You could choose to take just a moment here in a still seat as a rebound or a release between poses. You can also put your hands down behind you and lean a little weight back into your hands. You could explore letting your knees shift from side to side, or you could straighten your legs and let the knees pedal out or windshield wiper here. Find about half a minute here in some sort of a release that feels good to you, always knowing that stillness is an option. If you're sitting on a blanket or a different type of soft prop, you could shift it out from under your hips now, but you might keep it nearby. We're going to head down onto our backs and make sure your space is clear. Move all my water and my coffee out of my way here. And the last of my props. So find your way down onto your back. And as you arrive there, I'm going to bring my blanket just to rest over my belly for a little bit of grounding and a little bit of warmth. That's kind of cold in my space this morning. You could extend your hands toward the back of your space, reach through your feet. So just taking like a strong full body stretch, like the kind you might take in bed first thing in the morning. And then start to let your legs shift over off the long left edge of your mat. So you can keep the back of your right hip anchored to the floor. When your hip starts to lift away from the floor, it's a cue from the body you've hit your stopping place. So finding like a crescent moon or a banana shape from the feet to the hips. And then we'll start to bring the arms into that same orientation in banana asana. You could reach your arms off to the left. When you've arrived at your depth here, you may have already done this. You might cross your ankles to give the body a little support in remaining here. You might take your right hand to connect somewhere onto the left arm really gently. You could slightly turn the back of the right shoulder toward the floor. You'd let your eyes settle toward one point or let them close. And then start to call your attention back into your body. It tends to be the case that we often have about 5 breaths, the space of 5 breaths or so, that the mind will be quiet. And then another thought will bubble up or try to pull us into a mental conversation. And so when you notice the mind wants to engage, just allow that to happen, allow whatever thoughts come to come. And then rather than choosing to get involved, you could just let them drift through, moving through the level of your awareness like clouds passing by. And let your attention stay focused on your breath, on the sensations of the body. And see if you could locate any space inside of your body right now that could soften just 5 or 10% more. As you locate those spaces, you could notice present in each of your breaths out the invitation to soften, to let go, to release. And then you can notice again anywhere else in your body that you're still holding on, or that could soften just a little bit more. And take just a couple more deep rounds of breath here. And then start to shift your way back through center. Option to slide right into the second side of this pose, so to arc off to the right side of your mat, or to pause for a moment in center and let your arms come down alongside you and take a moment or two here. If you're choosing to take a minute in center and just rest there, you'll come into the second side on your own time whenever you feel ready. Whenever the time feels right, you can make your way in. When you've oriented toward the second side of this pose, you might start to look up the outer line of the body. You might call your attention to the space between your left ankle and your left hip and notice the quality of the sensations present in that space. And then notice the space from your left hip to your left shoulder. Maybe paying a particular moment of attention to the left side of your rib cage. And with the body oriented in this way, noticing how and where you feel the breath in the left side ribs. And notice from left shoulder to left fingertips. Where else in the body could you let go just a little more? You might let yourself notice the sensation of the floor underneath you. And for the next several breaths out, let the weight of your body go into the floor. Let yourself be supported and held there. And just let your body rest. You can start to find your way back to center. Your ankles have been crossed, you can uncross them and release your arms for a moment down alongside your body, or maybe bringing hands to rest on your belly. You could set your blanket off to the side or nearby, and then gently draw both of your knees into the center of your chest. You take a little bit of a side to side rock here across the low back. You might roll your feet out a couple of times and flex and point, roll through the ankles, maybe even widen your toes out and then let them soften. You could stay with knees drawn into the center of your chest, or you might also widen your knees slightly toward your armpits, a little bit like a form of child's pose on your back. You could stay there, or you could take just a moment in happy baby and connect hands to outer feet, outer ankles, or behind your thighs. If you've moved toward happy baby or in any form of the shape, an option to now remain still or to shift gently side to side. If you've widened toward happy baby or knees toward your armpits, you could start to find your way back to meet us with knees toward the center of your chest. And take one more little tight squeeze of knees in tight toward your chest. And then you might bring your blanket. We'll find our way into a final resting form, into Shavasana. So you might bring your blanket to rest under your knees. Or you could unwind your blanket and let it rest over top of you for warmth. If you have something nearby that you could use to cover your eyes, that is always a nice option. Settle into your final form. Take a deep breath and just let the weight of your body go. We'll remain here together for several minutes. My voice will go quiet, but I will be here holding this space for you. You take just a few minutes in rest. If you have the time and the space and you'd like to remain in Shavasana a while longer, I'd invite you to do just that. If you're ready to move out of practice and into your day, take a full deep breath in through your nose, maybe an open mouth, sigh out. From whatever way you've oriented your body, start to make your way over to one side and rest on your side for at least one round of breath, but maybe several. And in your own time, perhaps with your eyes still closed, you'd find your way to a seat. I'll invite you to join me, as always, in the gesture of Anjali Mudra to gather your hands to prayer at the center of your heart, to bow your head toward your hands. And I offer you my gratitude for taking 30 minutes out of your day to practice being still and quiet and turning your attention inside. Thank you so very much for joining me this morning. I appreciate you. Please be in touch and let me know if there's anything you need or would like to see in the future. I look forward to doing this with you again. Have a lovely day, a lovely week. I hope whatever it brings you is good. Take care of yourself and drink lots of water. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.